Thanks, Kevin. Once again, I'm Danielle Corbett. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to join us here on this really important topic, drone safety, it's the law. So let's get down to it. I hit the wrong button already. So why are we here? We're here to prioritize safety, and we do that through establishing relationships. I mean, the FAA has a long history of developing the national airspace system and integrating new aircraft over time and building air traffic control. And that's happened as kind of a slow and deliberative process. And recently, drones have entered into that established network, and it's really disrupted things in a really good way, but it makes us look at things a little bit differently. Drones are different in the way that they operate, they're different in where they operate, and they're different by who operates them. And so we have an opportunity to look at things a little bit differently. But the FAA is just one piece of the puzzle, and that's why we're here today, to establish, continue to establish and cultivate our relationship with our law enforcement, public safety community, as well as others. So drones are really cool. I mean, they've really changed our industry, and they've also changed other industries from agriculture to entertainment and everything in between. And they've also created brand new industries. And you can think about it that they've really done for aviation what the internet did for information. It's made it at scale, it's happened fast, and it's made it available to everyone. And so thank you for joining us here today as we kind of go through this activity together. But through it all, the FAA's main mission is to put safety first. And that's where we align. Public safety is in our wheelhouse, and it's what you guys do too. And we're going to talk about how we can work together as it relates to drones today. So the FAA, like I said, is just one piece of the puzzle. We do have inspectors, we have law enforcement assistance program agents located throughout the country, but generally we've always conducted surveillance activities near airports. Airplanes come in and out of airports, and with certificated operators that are bigger and people who we know where they are. Drones operate everywhere and by everybody, and so the FAA can't do it alone. And so thank you for joining us again today and for being our partner in helping to gather information and data about what's going on with drone activity out there. This is a two-way relationship. We do ask you guys to help us gather information in the field, but we also in turn provide support back to you in teaching you guys how to respond to drones and hopefully teaching you guys about anything that you need to know along the spectrum, including how to operate them for your operations. Today we're going to talk about enforcement investigation activities and how we can work together to that end. So throughout this webinar, we're going to talk about your authority, our authority, where it converges and aligns and sometimes converges, and how to handle a drone sighting or report in your area. So if you see a drone flying or somebody reports a drone activity to you, that's what we're going to talk about today, what you guys can do. And we'll talk a little bit about FAA penalties, and then of course, we'll answer your questions at the end, and we'll also be answering your questions throughout. So don't hold your question if you have it. So taking a quick step back, drones are aircraft, and this is a hard concept to kind of get your mind around. They're available everywhere and pretty inexpensively. You can go to a store, you can pick it up, you can bring it home, you can take it out of the box, and it doesn't take a lot of complexity to put it in the air. But as aircraft, they're subject to FAA regulations, and that's just not important from a regulatory or compliance aspect, but from a practical aspect. This is a piece of equipment that's operating in the national airspace system. The National Airspace System is a public resource that's really important to us to protect and preserve so that we can all take advantage of it. We're here because we love aviation and we want to make it available to everyone. But it's also important to know that those who are operating these drones are considered pilots or operators. And with that comes a big responsibility to conduct themselves safely, even if you don't necessarily know what all the regulations are, to always have that mindset of safety. And that's part of where our education starts and we grow. What's your authority? Your authority hasn't changed at all. You always have had the authority to take action when something violates a state or local law in your area. Just because there's a drone involved in that activity doesn't take it out of your jurisdiction and into ours. There are cases where something violates your laws as well as ours, and one or the other, and we'll kind of look through that a little bit in a few minutes. That said, it's always a crime to kind of knowingly or recklessly endanger manned aircraft. So that should be an immediate red flag of something that you can immediately take action on. But your authority hasn't changed simply because a drone is entered to the picture. So what do you do if you see a drone or get a report of a drone? Well, first of all, like I said, if a state or local law is being broken, do what you would normally do. Take the action you would normally take. We still ask that you provide that information back to us, and I'm going to say this word a lot, Law Enforcement Assistance Program, or LEAP agent, is your contact to the FAA. These are people who are dedicated FAA employees, liaisons with our law enforcement community. This is how we communicate, our Law Enforcement Assistance Program, or LEAP agent. I'm going to say that a lot. So even if something happens that you think violated a state or local law and you don't even know if it violated an FAA regulation, we ask that you please share that information with us so that we can in turn turn it around and conduct our investigations or education activities as needed. If an FAA regulation is being broken, but not a state or local law, same thing. Please take down that information or take any action that you see that may be necessary in the moment. But more importantly, send that information to us so that we can take our investigative or educational action later. You may not know what all the FAA regulations are, and we don't expect you to, but we'll give you a couple of red flags here today, such as an immediate threat to aviation activities. If there's a drone operating in an area where there are manned aircraft, regardless of whether it's at an airport or at a beach or anywhere else, this is an action that should raise a red flag and something that we need to know about, if possible in the moment, but definitely after the fact. So I'm going to say another term, another new term, Regional Operations Center. So we have 2 points of contact for you. The Law Enforcement Assistance Program agent is your primary point of contact for everyday activities. The Regional Operations Center is our immediate imminent threat contact phone number. So if you see something and you need FAA response or support in the moment, that's who you call. And that would be any threat to aviation activities. The Regional Operations Center can help you, provide you information to help you handle that situation, or they can put you in touch locally with someone, or also help with investigative, or pass that information along tertiary. Sorry, got myself cut up there for a sec. If there's a threat to public safety, do what you would normally do. Don't let the fact that it's an aviation-related activity stop you or cause you pause. If there's a threat to public safety, it's most important that that threat is eliminated. We can then take action or help you take action after the fact. And again, I'll say we can communicate through those channels of the Law Enforcement Assistance Program or LEAP agent or the Regional Operations Center as appropriate. If you're not sure if a federal aviation regulation is being broken, you're probably not, because there's a lot of regulations and we don't expect you to know what they all are. And we certainly don't expect you to be our enforcement arm for regulations. However, if you're interested and you'd like to know what those regulations are, the LEAP agent is here to help educate you. So contact them now and establish that rapport, and they can help you know at least enough to know when a red flag should go up. But if you don't know, here are things that should always throw up a red flag. Anything that endangers people or property, whether it be on the air or on the ground, is something that should raise a red flag and prompt an action, whether it be an action in the moment or an action of sharing that information with us so that we can conduct an investigation later. Any interference with manned aircraft is always a violation. Drones, regardless of who they're operated by or where they're operated or under what regulatory framework, give way to manned aircraft. So regardless of any other factor, such as altitude or speed or direction of flight, if a drone interferes with a manned aircraft, that's an action that needs to be taken. Same thing with interference with your activities. Any interference with public safety activities is a violation and something that should be dealt with immediately if possible, and certainly after the fact. We often think about wildfire suppression and how drones have stopped those and put the safety of the public at risk during those high-profile events. Same with national disasters and things like that. This also applies, though, to local incident responses if a helicopter is coming in. But even if aviation is not related, if any time a drone is interfering with your activities, this is something that needs to be dealt with. Flight over critical infrastructure. There's some notices out there to airmen about loitering over critical infrastructure, and this is something that should raise some red flags that you might want to pursue. There are cases where there are specific flight restrictions over these areas. In your jurisdiction, you can kind of start looking at that now to determine if there is a flight restriction of some kind over certain areas in your jurisdiction. If you're not sure, you can go to our website, faa.gov/UAS, and you can learn more about temporary flight restrictions. These are just what they sound like. They're flight restrictions that are applied on a temporary basis. Sometimes that's over the course of hours, sometimes that's over the course of days, and sometimes it's even longer than that, even though they're considered temporary. Usually, temporary flight restrictions apply to all aircraft. So you'll see these over large sporting events like NFL football games and Major League Baseball games and things like that. Certainly around presidential or other VIP movements. So these are things that are dynamic. So it's good to know what kinds of temporary flight restrictions there are, and that will prompt you to find out if there's one up in your area at any given time. Again, go to our website, faa.gov/UAS, to learn more about flight restrictions and to find links on how you can determine if there's one in your area. There are some flight restrictions that apply just to UAS. Generally, these are over military or other federal government locations that are of national security interest. Again, if you have a place like this in your area, check out if there's a flight restriction over that. Those are considered temporary, but are on a more fixed basis. So this is something that you can do in advance of a drone sighting or report. So what do you do when you're on the scene, and what information can you collect? Well, the first thing that you can do is ask for a drone registration. Drone registration is required for pretty much all UAS, with very limited exclusions for very, very, very small drones. Most drones must be registered, and so this gives us a point of reference to start a education or a investigation. So if you find an operator who you need to talk to and you want to establish a report, they should have their registration with them. They must have their registration with them in two ways. One, the registration form, either in paper or electronic format, and two, the drone itself must be marked with the registration number. Sorry, I got distracted there for a second. So if you find a drone that's been abandoned or crashed or lost, the registration number must be marked on the outside of that drone. You'll know if it is, you'll see a marking of some kind that starts with an FA number. That's your indication that this is the FAA registration number. And it's important that you know the distinction between the registration number and the serial number. And the reason why is that the registration number can be linked to an individual in our databases. That's what it's all based on. The serial number may be linked through the manufacturer may be able to track that down, but the FAA's databases are predicated on the registration number, and those are correlated to individuals. The serial number is not. So look for that FA number, and it should be always on the outside of the aircraft. If it's not in compliance with regulations, and you shouldn't have to manhandle or manipulate the drone, putting yourself at risk to expose parts or batteries, or even worse, some sort of hidden explosive device located within the drone. So that number should always be on the outside of the aircraft. This here graphic is available as a document to download on the left side of the panel there. So if you need some more information or want to hang that up in your office so that you can remember what those registration numbers look like, that would be a good thing to download. The FAA does take action and goes after penalties for people who violate rules or safety. We have civil penalties of significant dollar values, and we work with our government partners in DOJ and other law enforcement agencies to pursue criminal penalties when that's necessary. So this is another example of the relationship that we have. We ask for you guys to support us to pursue civil penalties, and we support you in criminal penalties. And we can even take certificate action to deprive people of the privilege of operating in the airspace in some cases. So we do have some teeth. So let's talk about a common example and what this looks like. Let's say a drone is being flown over a crowd of people in your area. This could be a marathon or an outdoor concert or something that's small. It doesn't rise to the level of the temporary flight restrictions we talked about earlier. Flight directly over people's heads is currently a violation of FAA regulations with few very narrow exceptions. It may also be a threat to public safety. For example, if it's flying erratically or too close to people, or if you feel that public safety is being threatened by this activity, could be dispersing something or not sure what's happening, take some action. Take some action under your state or local laws. Also, please send us that information that we can come back and conduct an investigation and provide education or enforcement as necessary in this case. Another really common example is privacy stuff. You get a call, somebody's flying a drone over my backyard, my daughter's at the pool, I think it's taking pictures, I don't like it. Here's an example of something that where we may converge. Flight, the airspace is open to drones, regardless of certain other activities. As operations, the FAA has authority over the operations of aircraft in airspace. What those operations are doing may also violate a state or local law. So if you have a privacy or trespass or peeping Tom type regulation on the books, this activity may violate that. Just because it's a drone doesn't mean it's only in the FAA's authority. The FAA does not get involved in privacy. That falls into your authority. Where our authority is in the management and conduct in the airspace. So if you think about a drone as another tool, and very often another kind of camera, it might make a little bit more sense. So it's analogous to a guy having climbed a tree, or gal, and is using a camera. If that violates a law, a surveillance type law in your area, the fact that it's a drone is no different. Again, we ask that you take this information and report it to your law enforcement assistance program agent. So I've said that a lot. It's the LEAP agent is the acronym for it. There's a couple documents that you can download on the left side of your screen. We produced this, can you see it? This card, this is printed on a big piece of paper, but it's meant to be printed on a small piece of paper, and it gives you the critical information that you should be looking for in the field. And this is just a quick reference to help you and your agents to help start determining what the activities look like and information to gather that may result in an education or in investigation later. On the back of that form, since it's the quick reference card, is the Regional Operations Center contact information. And again, that's the imminent threat, we need you now, contact information. We have another piece of paper, it's the blue one. It's a slightly longer form, it's got more words on it. It goes into a little bit more detail, and on the back of that document is the contact information for your LEAP agent. Your LEAP agent, again, is your primary contact with the FAA. They can provide support for your investigations as well as education. And also on that back of that form is the contact information for the regional operations centers, which are your imminent threat contacts. But here it is again, so you can take a picture. We're going to make sure that you have this information. You can take a picture of this slide, or this information, again, will be posted online. You can see that the law enforcement assistant program agents, or the LEAP agents, are spread throughout the country. These contacts represent individuals, so we don't have a ton of them, but these individuals can provide a lot of service to you, and they have, again, the whole FAA as a resource to provide you what you need. If you want education for your staff, these guys can set it up. I think I came offline here for a sec, but the next slide is the contact information for the regional operations centers. Again, they are regional. These things are open 24 hours a day. They can provide you, we're on the wrong slide there. This is the regional operations centers. They're open 24/7. These are the ones to call something imminent. I need help or support right now, especially if there's a threat to aviation operations. These are the guys that you call. That said, don't stop what you're doing to call the FAA. If you can take action to eliminate the threat, and then call the FAA. And no matter what the scale, we still ask that you share that information with us, because the more information we have, the better we can educate our community and the better we can understand what's happening out in the field. And you guys are in the best position to do that, and we thank you for that. A lot of resources available on the web. Our website, faa.gov/UAS, is updated all the time. If you go to /resources, you'll find more details about what we talked about today, information about how you can start your own drone program. There's also a document on the left side of the webinar here that you can download that's like a quick reference sheet to prompt some questions that you can ask yourself if you want to start a drone program. If you want information from us on a more regular basis, on pretty much every web page on our website, but specifically on the one there, there's a little envelope with a green plus sign on it. If you click on that, it'll open up a page that will allow you to select some preferences on the types of information that you would like to receive from the FAA, so that when we put out mass distributions of stuff, you'll get the information that you're interested in. And of course, we're on social. Social is a great place for us to communicate. It goes two ways. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We post a lot of current events and hot topics and things of interest. Follow us, contribute, tell us what you think. If we post something that you think is great, or even not great, or of interest to your colleagues, share it. This is how we create a community, and then this is how we create that safety culture. The more information we have, the better. Same thing with this webinar. If you like what you see today, we'll post it online. Share it with your friends. Share it with your colleagues. We do have some other really cool things that we have available to you guys. We produced a video called Drone Enforcement. It covered a lot of what we talked about today. And this is a cool product for you to show your staff, your colleagues, or at a roll call type thing. Kind of goes over a quick overview of your authorities and some basic FAA regulations. DOJ also produced a really nice video that talks about how to handle drone sightings in the field. Both of these videos are available on YouTube. And this presentation will be available on YouTube and at this link here. So we try to hit you where you are. If you like paper, we have paper. If you like videos, we have videos. If you like social, we have social. Keep in touch with us. Tell us what you want. Tell us what you need. And we're trying to do the same for you. And the more we create a partnership and the more information we share, the better we all are. One last plug, we have an FAA symposium. This is something that the FAA does in conjunction with an industry organization. It's coming up this June in Baltimore. And this is really more of a broad scale event that has all facets of industry. It's got about 1,000 participants we did last year. So it's not specific to government or law enforcement type operations, but those topics will be covered. But they'll also talk about new technologies and also very specific things on how to conduct operations. So if you have any interest in that and you want, or if you're just generally interested in drones, this is a great place to learn about what's going on and to meet and network with others. With that, I think we can turn it over to our questions.
All right, thank you, Danielle. That was great information. We're going to take just a short 1 to 2 minute break, and then we're going to set up to take your questions live on the air. In the meantime, during this break, if you wouldn't mind taking this poll for us here, I'm going to open it here in just a second. But we want to know, if you found this webinar valuable, which topic would you like to see addressed in our next webinar? So as we get set up to take your questions live on the air here, please just take a moment and submit your vote there to help us out so we can get the correct information to you and information that's also important to you. So we'll be back in just about a minute.